Shalom, friend. We have a very exciting Torah portion this week, which takes us back all the way to the account of creation. We are now in Parashat Toledot, which is from Genesis chapter 25, verse 19, up to 28, verse 9. Toledot is a Hebrew word that means generations or descendants. It comes from the root word yalad, which means to give birth. So, which part of Parashat Toledot takes us back to the account of creation? Kindly allow me to read from Genesis chapter 25, verse 21. Isaac prayed to Adonai on behalf of his wife because she was barren. Adonai answered his plea, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. It is so clear in the Torah that the matriarchs Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel were all barren at the start of their marriages. Sarah, we read about it in Genesis chapter 11, verse 30. Rebekah, we have just read it in Genesis chapter 25, verse 21. And Leah and Rachel, we read about that in Genesis chapter 29, verse 31. All the matriarchs, the wives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were initially barren, including Leah, because Genesis chapter 29, verse 31 says, "Now Adonai saw that Leah was unloved, so he opened her womb, but Rachel was unable to conceive." The Bible tells us that their husbands prayed for them and their wombs opened, and then they were able to give birth. The Jewish scholars often draw parallels between various aspects of creation and the narratives of the matriarchs. In the case of their initial barrenness, we read in the creation narrative as follows. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 11 and 12, "Then God said, 'Let the land sprout grass, green plants yielding seed, fruit trees making fruit, each according to its species, with seed in it, upon the land.' And it happened so. The land brought forth grass, green plants yielding seed, each according to its species, and the trees making fruit with the seed in it, each according to its species. And God saw that it was good." Besides the fact that this verse shows us the earth's involvement in the formation of God's creation at his command, we also have a contribution from Rabbi Asi, who explains that the trees and herbs and all plant life began to grow on the third day as they had been commanded, but stopped before they broke through the soil. It then remained for Adam to pray for them, whereupon rain fell and the growth was completed. And he concludes by saying that this teaches us that God longs for the prayers of the righteous. It also shows us man's involvement in partnership with God in the work of creation, since Adam's prayer was part of the process. So in the case of the trees and herbs that began to grow but stopped before they broke through the soil and then needed Adam's prayer in order to fully sprout, this serves as a metaphor for the initial barrenness of the matriarchs, who were unable to conceive until they received prayers and blessings from their husbands, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So just as the trees and herbs required Adam's prayer to complete their growth, the matriarchs needed the earnest prayers of their husbands in order to overcome their barrenness. And this connection emphasizes a few key concepts. The first one is the role of righteousness, and then the divine will and human action, and then hope and faith. In terms of the role of righteousness, the prayers of the righteous, that's Adam for the trees and the herbs, and the patriarchs for their wives, are depicted as powerful and necessary for overcoming challenges. In this case, the challenge of infertility. So what about today? What about in your life? Are you living a righteous life in Christ? Do you take your challenges to God in prayer? And do you recognize the role of your partnership with God in life? The second concept is in the divine will and human action. The example of the trees and herbs and their matriarchs reflect the idea that while God may initiate certain processes like creation and growth, human actions, starting with the prayers of the righteous people, play a critical role in bringing about the intended outcomes. This highlights that there is actually a cooperation between the divine will and the human effort. God may bless you with a creative mind, but if you do not make the effort to use it, that great idea of a profitable business will not come out and manifest into reality, and therefore you will die poor, even though the idea was richly blessed unto you in your mind, because you would have lacked in your part in the cooperation between divine will and human effort. And number 3, hope and faith. These narratives underscore themes of hope and faith in God's plan. The initial barrenness of the matriarchs was a test of their faith, which eventually led to significant blessings, much like the uncompleted growth of the trees and herbs that required prayer in order to flourish. As a result of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob being the patriarchs of all Israel, and the believers in Christ being the children of Abraham by faith, according to Galatians chapter 3 verse 7 and chapter 3 verse 29, this means our existence is a miraculous result of the prayers of the patriarchs. As the sages say, the experiences of the patriarchs and matriarchs prove that the emergence of Israel is a miracle. For each new generation of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was a gift of God to a mother who could not have given birth naturally. Their experience is a demonstration of the proclamation that God desires the prayers of the righteous, whose pleas for heavenly mercy and attempts at self-improvement show how human beings can raise themselves to spiritual heights. Just as the growth of the trees and the herbs was contingent upon Adam's prayer, so too was the fertility of the matriarchs reliant on the prayers of the patriarchs. This emphasizes the powerful interplay between divine assistance and the role of the righteous people in fulfilling God's plans. My friend, you and me, we always have to bear this in mind. Our partnership with God in the occurrence of things through prayer and purposeful actions. Let us therefore be purposeful in prayer and live our lives in line with what it takes to remove barrenness from our lives, in whatever form or metaphor barrenness represents in my life and in your life. May we become more fruitful as we understand deeper what it means to work in partnership with God. Friend, thank you so much for watching and have a great week.